What is the essence of clear thought? How does one navigate the labyrinth of the mind to emerge not merely unscathed, but enlightened, empowered, and serene? This question has, through the ages, been the silent whisper in the heart of man's pursuit of wisdom. I am Marcus Aurelius, a student of philosophy, a practitioner of Stoicism, and once an emperor of Rome. My time was one of war and peace, of plague and prosperity, and through it all, the pursuit of clear thinking was my compass. Today, I stand before you, not as a ruler, but as a guide to the art of thought. In this first part of our discourse, let us explore the foundation of clear thinking, the disciplined mind. It is within discipline that the seeds of clarity are sown. To think clearly, one must cultivate a steadfastness of mind, a fortress within which reason can operate unimpeded by the chaos of external life. Consider the words I once penned. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The disciplined mind does not waver with the tides of fortune or misfortune. It remains anchored, not to the fleeting whims of circumstance, but to reason, virtue, and purpose. Now, reflect on this. How often have your thoughts been swayed by the noise of the crowd or the whisper of doubt? The disciplined mind is trained to resist these forces. It is like the oak, steadfast in the storm, its roots entrenched deeply in the earth of reason and truth. Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound lessons from the legend. To cultivate such discipline, one must first understand the nature of perception. All events are neutral, merely facts of being. It is in our interpretation that we give them meaning, and thus it is within our power to choose our response. Imagine you are faced with a betrayal, a common enough occurrence in the tapestry of human relations. The undisciplined mind may react with anger, with resentment or despair. But the disciplined mind, it pauses, it observes, and it chooses a response aligned with virtue. Perhaps it is forgiveness you choose, or maybe a calm severance of ties, but it is a choice made with clarity and not in the fog of passion. Now let me share with you a story from my own life, a lesson in the importance of a disciplined mind. It was during the Marcomannic Wars, a time of great strife for the empire. I was faced with the challenge of not only military might but also the weight of leadership. It was discipline that steadied my hand, discipline that allowed me to consider each decision with care, untainted by fear or fury. How then do you build such discipline? It begins each morning when you rise. Prepare yourself for the day not just in body but in mind. Remind yourself of your values, your purpose, and the impermanence of life. In this way, you set the tone for a day lived with intention, a day where clear thinking will be your guide. Each task you undertake, do so with full attention. Let not the mind wander to the past or the future, for it is in the present that life unfolds. When you eat, let it be the act of eating that occupies your mind. When you speak with another, be there fully, listening, understanding, engaging with the essence of the dialogue. The disciplined mind also requires periods of reflection. Each evening, take the time to look back upon your day. What did you do well? Where did you falter? Be honest in your assessment, but not cruel. Use this reflection not as a whip, but as a teacher. Let me leave you with a question to ponder before we reconvene. What is the one thing you allow to disrupt the discipline of your mind most frequently? Hold that thought, for it is the first obstacle we shall overcome together in our quest for clear thinking, the power of perception, and the art of objectivity. Now that we've laid the groundwork with the disciplined mind, let's move to our second lesson, the power of perception and the art of objectivity. To think clearly, you must see clearly, And this means viewing the world not through the distorted lens of personal bias, but with the clarity of an unclouded lens. Consider the idea that our life is what our thoughts make it. It is not events themselves that disturb people, but only their judgments about them. An event in isolation is devoid of emotion. It is our perception that clothes it in the garb of happiness, tragedy, or indifference. Take, for instance, my own role as emperor. Each decision I made came with repercussions. Each policy affected lives. I had to see beyond my personal feelings to the heart of the matter, to the welfare of the empire. This required a detachment, a stepping back to view the situation as if from above, to see all the pieces on the board. Now, consider a situation in your own life, a challenge you face. How do you perceive it? Is it a disaster, an opportunity, or perhaps a test of your character? Your perception dictates your response, and thus, to master your thoughts, you must first master your perceptions. Let me illustrate with a story. There was a time during my reign when Rome faced the threat of famine. The granaries were nearly empty and there was much fear among the people. But rather than succumb to panic, I looked at the situation with a clear eye. I saw not just the scarcity but the opportunity for reform, for improving our methods of storage and distribution. This perspective allowed for a solution that not only addressed the immediate crisis, but fortified the empire for the future. How can you train your perception? It begins with the acknowledgement that you have the power to choose what you focus on. In any situation, there are multiple angles from which to view it. Practice looking at a challenge from different perspectives. Ask yourself, what would someone else see here? How would they react? This exercise will help you to separate your personal feelings from the matter at hand, allowing for a more objective and clear thought process. Another vital aspect of clear thinking is the suspension of judgment. When new information presents itself, resist the urge to immediately label it as good or bad. Instead, observe it, analyze it, and withhold your verdict until you've had time to consider all facets. Now let me ask you a profound question. How often do you let your initial reaction dictate your perception of an event? It is in the space between stimulus and response that your power lies, the power to choose, the power to see clearly. As we conclude this second lesson, remember that your perceptions are the bedrock upon which your thoughts are built. If they are skewed, so too will be your thoughts. Strive for objectivity, for the broad view, and you will find that many of the obstacles you face are not as insurmountable as they once seemed. We will pause here and allow these ideas to settle like sediment in clear water. When we return, we shall build upon this foundation of disciplined thinking and clear perception to explore the next pillar of clear thought, self-awareness. In clear thinking. In our third lesson, we turn our attention to the vital role of self-awareness in clear thinking. To navigate the complex corridors of the mind with any hope of reaching the open air of clarity, one must possess an intimate understanding of oneself. Self-awareness is the keen insight into your own character, emotions, and desires. It is the light that dispels the shadows of confusion and uncertainty. Consider for a moment the interplay between your emotions and your thoughts. How often have I seen a man led astray by the siren call of his own passions? It is only by stepping back and recognizing these emotional currents that one can steer the ship of thought with any semblance of competence. I myself was not immune to such tumults of the soul. As an emperor, I was surrounded by flattery and temptation, by those who would use emotion to influence my decisions. Yet it was my duty, my obligation to the people of Rome, to remain clear-headed. I achieved this by constantly engaging in an inner dialogue, questioning my motives, my feelings, and my biases. Now I invite you to consider your own inner landscape. What drives you? What fears lurk in the recesses of your mind? What desires tug at your rationality? It is only by facing these elements of your psyche that you can hope to achieve mastery over them. Let me share a personal anecdote. During a time of great political upheaval, I felt the cold grip of fear for the future of Rome. It would have been easy to let that fear dictate my actions, but instead, I turned inward. I asked myself, why does this fear arise? What can I control here? By understanding the root of my fear, I was able to address it, to reassure myself of my capacity to meet the challenges ahead with a steady hand and a clear mind. Cultivating self-awareness requires a dedication to introspection. Take time each day to look within, to examine your thoughts and emotions without judgment. It is not enough to simply experience. One must understand. Question why you react a certain way, why certain thoughts recur, and what patterns emerge in your thinking. I often found solace and insight in the writings of the great philosophers, in the wisdom of those who had walked the path of self-inquiry before me. Their words were mirrors in which I could see my own soul reflected and better understood. And now, I ask you a question that cuts to the core of self-awareness. When last did you change a long-held belief? It is a true test of self-awareness to recognize when a belief no longer serves you, to discard it not with shame but with the knowledge that you have grown. As we conclude this third lesson, remember that self-awareness is not an end but a process. It is a garden that must be tended, lest the weeds of ignorance and illusion choke the flowers of insight and understanding. Let these thoughts settle within you, and when we next convene, we shall take the final step in our exploration of clear thinking, where all these lessons converge into the practice of wisdom. The practice of wisdom. In our final lesson, we address the culmination of our previous discussions, the practice of wisdom. Wisdom is not merely a collection of knowledge, but the application of clear thinking, objectivity, and self-awareness to one's life. It is the skillful art of living, where each decision is informed by a sharp mind and a reflective soul. To live wisely is to recognize that every choice carries weight, that each moment is a stone in the mosaic of your existence. I've often found that the most profound wisdom is simple in nature, yet profound in its application. It calls for us to act with virtue, to align our actions with our principles, and to live with integrity. Consider the daily choices you face. Each one is an opportunity to practice wisdom. In my role as emperor, the choices were many and often complex, touching the lives of countless individuals. I had to consider not only the immediate effects but the long-term consequences of my decisions. It was through a clear and present focus on my values and my duty that I was able to act wisely. Now turn your thoughts to your own life. How do you approach your decisions? Do you rush forward driven by immediate desires, or do you pause to consider the broader tapestry you are weaving with your actions? Wisdom is found in that pause, in the space where thought and action meet. Let me share a principle I held close. Always act as if your actions set a precedent for others to follow. This simple rule served as a guidepost for wise decision-making. It encouraged me to consider the example I was setting, the standard I was establishing. To practice wisdom, you must also be willing to learn from every source available to you. From the words of others, the patterns of nature, the unfolding of events. Life itself is a teacher if only you are receptive to its lessons. And now, a question for you to carry forward. How can you embody wisdom today? Let it not be a rhetorical flourish, but a genuine inquiry into how you can live today with wisdom as your guide. As this lesson concludes, remember that wisdom is not a static state but a dynamic practice. It is the application of all we have discussed, a harmonious blend of discipline, objectivity, self-awareness, and the continuous pursuit of growth. Carry these lessons with you, not as burdens, but as tools. Let them be the instruments with which you sculpt a life of clarity, purpose, and wisdom. Now go forward with these teachings not just etched in memory, but alive in your actions. Let the practice of wisdom be the legacy you leave, the mark of a life well lived, and the greatest of the virtues you cultivate in the fertile ground of your existence. The concept of resilience. As we move beyond the initial 4 lessons, we now turn to the concept of resilience. Resilience is the inner strength that allows one to rebound from setbacks, adapt to change, and keep moving forward in the face of adversity. It is the gritty determination that underpins a stable mind and a life that is not tossed about by the whims of fate. I've faced my share of adversity, whether it be in battle, politics, or personal loss. Each difficulty tested my resolve and compelled me to either succumb to despair or rise with renewed vigor. I learned that resilience is not an innate trait, but a forged one, shaped by experience and the conscious choice to endure and overcome. Let's take a moment to consider the nature of obstacles. They are not barriers to your path. They are the path. Each one presents a chance to grow stronger, more capable. In my own life, when faced with a challenge, I saw it as an opportunity to test my virtues, to apply the wisdom and self-discipline I had cultivated. Now, think about a recent challenge you've encountered. How did you respond? Did you find a reservoir of strength within you, or did you seek solace in retreat? Remember that resilience is built through facing difficulties, not avoiding them. To develop resilience, one must also embrace a measure of flexibility. The oak that resists the wind may crack, while the willow bends and survives the storm. In my own rule, I found that being adaptable to the changing tides of circumstance often meant the difference between a successful campaign and a disastrous one. Consider then how you can cultivate flexibility in your own life. It might mean adjusting your approach to a problem, or simply changing your perspective on what you can and cannot control. And now, a practical exercise for building resilience. When you meet with a setback, take a breath and steady yourself. Look at the situation squarely and ask, what can I learn from this? How can I grow? Use adversity as a tool for development, and let your response to it shape you into a stronger, more capable person. As we wrap up this lesson, remember that resilience is not about never falling, but about learning how to rise every time you fall. It's about moving forward with purpose and tenacity, even when the path is steep and strewn with obstacles. Take these thoughts with you as we conclude our time together today. Let them guide you as you face the complexity of life with a heart that knows both its own strength and its capacity to endure and adapt. Resilience is the quiet companion of wisdom, a steadfast ally as you navigate the unpredictable waters of existence. The idea of legacy. As we approach the conclusion of our series of lessons, the final topic to discuss is the idea of legacy, what one leaves behind for others. Legacy is the lasting impact of our actions, the ripples we create in the pond of humanity. It's about the mark we make on the world, how we're remembered, and the contributions we offer to future generations. Throughout my life and reign as emperor, I was acutely aware of the legacy I was crafting with each decision, each decree, and each day. I strove to be a leader whose actions would resonate with virtue and justice long after my time had passed. I endeavored to set a standard for those who would follow, to leave a template of governance and personal conduct rooted in Stoic philosophy. Think about the concept of legacy in your own life. What do you wish to be remembered for? It's not about grandiosity or the desire to be remembered for centuries. Rather, It's about the quality of your relationships, the integrity of your actions, and the passion with which you pursue your endeavors. Creating a meaningful legacy starts with the small choices you make each day, how you interact with others, the care with which you approach your work, and the manner in which you tackle challenges. All these things weave together to form the tapestry of your legacy. To build a legacy, you must live with intention. Consider the values you wish to embody and let them guide your actions. In my own life, I found that living according to my principles was a daily practice. It required mindfulness and a commitment to act in accordance with the greater good, even when it was difficult. Now, let's focus on the present. What actions can you take today that contribute to the legacy you wish to build? Maybe it's offering kindness where there is strife, providing guidance where there is confusion, or simply being a source of calm in the storm of daily life. As we close, I urge you to think about legacy not as a distant horizon, but as the ground beneath your feet at this very moment. Each step you take is a brick laid in the edifice of tomorrow. Live consciously, act with purpose, and you will naturally construct a legacy that reflects the essence of who you are. Reflect on this final lesson not as an end, but as an invitation to continually create, through your thoughts and deeds, a legacy that truly represents the depths of your character and the breadth of your life story. Let the idea of legacy be a guiding star, illuminating the path to a life lived with purpose and leaving a trail that inspires others to do the same.